It was late that night, way later than I'd planned. I'd been scrambling, trying to get some groceries after a brutal day at work. Usually I never go for groceries at that hour, but that day was an exception in my book. By the time I was done, the parking lot was deserted. It was a big lot, mostly dark except for the dim lights near the entrance. My car was parked away at the end because when I arrived, the place was packed. The wind was cold and a little foggy. I hadn't brought a jacket, just a light sweater. Faint fog was barely visible through the streetlights. I'd driven over in the evening, didn't expect it to get this cold. I started shivering, and all I wanted was to get home. I had a couple of heavy grocery bags in my hands. I was hurrying towards my car, trying to ignore the shivers running down my spine. That's when I saw a guy walking towards me from the other side of the lot. He was wearing a hoodie and a pair of torn-up jeans. Nothing about him felt particularly strange, but there were no other cars parked nearby. He seemed to have just appeared from the edge of the lot. As I walked towards my car, he waved at me and called me out. The guy then approached me. He then said he needed my help with something. I slowed down, not wanting to be rude, but I still didn't want to get involved. It was late and I was tired. I still didn't trust the guy, so I shifted the bags in my left hand and stopped a few feet from my car. I thought maybe he needed directions or something. It's not unusual for people to ask somebody for directions, especially for those who aren't from around here. I asked him what he needed, trying to sound casual, but he got closer, way too close. It was a bit weird, but I brushed it off. I noticed he was older than I initially thought. He was around my age, but with some gray hairs at his temples. His face was a little wrinkled, but he had a well-trimmed beard which made him seem genuine. He asked me if I was from around here. I said yes, and that I knew the area. But he didn't ask me for anything as I was expecting. Instead, he stepped closer again. That was weird. I was starting to feel really uneasy. He told me he was looking for a place near Cedar Creek, which was a few miles away. He said he was a little lost, and he didn't know the neighborhoods around here. I asked him if he needed to find someone's location or something, but he said no. He said he came here to do something big, and then he added that he was just looking for a place to finally take care of it. It was disturbing. What was he talking about? The way he said the last part, it sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just directions he was asking for. There was something else. It was unsettling. I took a step back, gripping the bags tighter. I told him I wasn't really sure what he was asking. Then I tried to step back, saying I haven't been there that much. I told him I didn't know that area very well. There were a lot of neighborhoods around there, and most of them were unfamiliar to me. He didn't answer. He just stared at me, that creepy smile still plastered on his face. Then he shifted his gaze to my car, then back to me. He did that twice, and it was freaking me out. He then said that I lived around here. Maybe it was close to my place. That's when I really started to feel the fear. The way he asked was casual, but it was invasive, like he was trying to pry something out of me. It gave me goosebumps. I knew he wasn't just asking for directions. I told him I didn't live around here. I lied to him, my voice coming out more tense than I intended. I just came here for groceries because it was cheap. He was still smiling, but now it was more of a smirk. He said that I didn't look like I lived far away. Maybe I was just messing with him. I should take him so he didn't get lost. My heart started to race. My hands started sweating even though it was freezing. I was trying to think of a way to get rid of him, but I was trapped. I looked around, but there was no one else in the lot. I was too far from the store to make a run for it, and he was blocking my path to the car. I told him I couldn't help him, trying to sound firm. He needed to find someone else, and I was in a hurry. I took another step back, hoping he'd take the hint and leave me alone, but he didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, now only a foot away from me. He asked me again where I lived, saying it would be easier if I just showed him the way. My hands were shaking. I was so close to my car, but he was blocking the door. His smile was gone now. He was staring at me with an angry look, asking why I wouldn't tell him. My mind was racing. I was thinking of ways to get out of this without making it worse. Every part of my body was screaming at me to run, but I couldn't see a way around him. The lot was too empty. Too quiet. I knew things could go wrong very quickly. I told him I didn't know him and I didn't feel comfortable. I told him I was leaving. I tried to push past him, but he stepped closer. I acted on instinct and rushed toward my car. He almost grabbed me. He yelled at me to tell him where I lived, his voice filled with rage. I didn't think, I just reacted. I swung one of the grocery bags at him as hard as I could. He was caught off guard. He stumbled back a little. I rushed into my car, fumbling with the keys. He was coming at me again. I slammed the door shut and he hit the window, shouting something I couldn't hear. I started the engine, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. I reversed the car, barely missing him as he jumped out of the way. I slammed on the gas and sped out of the lot, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't stop until I was halfway home. I pulled over to the side of the road. I was trying to catch my breath. My heart was still racing and I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to calm down. I still don't know who that guy was or what he wanted, but I know it wasn't directions. And I know that if I hadn't acted fast, things could have been a lot worse. I drove the rest of the way home in a daze, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. That cold, empty smile, and I heard his voice asking me where I lived. My work as a freelance photographer often took me to remote locations. I always loved capturing the raw beauty of landscapes far from the city's clamor. That day, I'd been shooting a series on abandoned farmhouses deep in the county. That project had kept me out later than expected. I'd taken a detour onto a rural back road. I was seeking a quieter road to avoid the traffic. I was enjoying the ride home. The sun was setting, everything had an orange glow, and after a long day, I was actually starting to relax. It was getting a little dark, and I was thinking of pulling over to a diner after I reached the city. But just then, my car started sputtering. It startled me. I checked the dashboard, tried to figure out what was going on, but I didn't see anything obvious. I turned the key, but the click of the key was the only response. It was annoying. I got out of the car and opened the hood. There were wires messed up everywhere, and I didn't know which one was faulty. I checked the wires, the battery. Everything seemed okay to me. I was frustrated. I regretted taking this back road. There was not a single person around to help me, and my phone had no service either. I went inside the car and sat there with no hope. I was about to head back into the back seat for a long night in the car. Just then I saw headlights. I was filled with hope, and I rushed outside the car to signal whoever was in the car. But I was late. It had already gone past me. I didn't know what to think about that. I cursed myself for not getting out of the car faster. I checked my phone for any signals, but there were none in the area. As I was checking my phone, a loud rumble came from ahead. Then the glow of bright headlights filled the road as a truck pulled over to the roadside. A man stepped out of the truck, and I felt a surge of hope as he approached my car. He had a scruffy beard and a long winter coat. He smiled at me and asked if I was the one shouting at him earlier. I asked him if he was the one passing me a few minutes ago. He nodded and asked me what the problem was. I told him my car just stopped and I had no idea how to fix it. The guy then went inside my car and tried to turn on the engine. A low whistle escaped his lips while he was doing that. He seemed genuine. It looked like he knew about cars, but the engine still didn't turn on. He came outside the car and opened the hood. The way he was checking the wires, moving his hands with ease, he knew what he was doing. After a few minutes, he straightened his back out of the bonnet. A little smudge of grease was on his fingers. He smiled at me and told me to start the engine. I went inside the car and started the engine. Like a miracle, the engine turned on. For a moment, I thought I could finally go home, but the car jerked off again. I looked at my car and asked him what the problem was. He said the carburetor wasn't working properly. He then said a friend of his drives the same model, and he has the same problem. He then said he doesn't know that much about cars, but he can give me a lift to the town. I thanked him, saying I really appreciated what he was doing for me. He brushed it off and told me to just get in the truck. I locked my car and climbed into the back seat. I was a bit nervous at first, sitting in a stranger's vehicle, but he seemed so genuine, and I didn't have any other options. The truck was cleaner than it looked from the outside. It smelled of dry dirt, and the old leather seats reeked of sweat. He started the engine, and his face was lit up by the dashboard lights. He looked back at me and smiled, introducing himself as Matteo. He told me to make myself comfortable. I nodded and thanked him again. The truck started moving. It was completely dark except for the road ahead of us. My car was visible through the windshield, but it receded into the distance as we drove past it. I was getting a little worried about leaving my car alone out there. Matteo started talking about how he used to fish in a nearby lake with his dad and uncle. He said it was his weekly childhood routine. I tried to make small talk because I didn't want to be rude to him. I told him about some of my stories and how I became a photographer. But after a while, I noticed we were heading deeper into the woods. I looked at the surroundings. I didn't see any other cars or any road signs in the area. My heart was beating when I saw nothing but trees all around us. I asked him if he was sure we were going to town. He told me not to worry, it was a quick shortcut. It cuts through the traffic and this is the quickest way. I was skeptical. I asked him how far we were, trying to keep my voice casual. He said it wasn't too far. Just wait, the town is ahead. His voice was a little cold, emotionless. I was startled. Why did he change his behavior all of a sudden? I tried to brush it off, thinking he must be annoyed by me. But just then the truck turned onto a narrower dirt road. I knew something was wrong. I told him where he was taking me. This wasn't the way to town. He said he knew where he was going and I needed to calm down. I didn't trust him. The air in the truck thickened with tension. I told him to stop the truck, but he didn't listen. He just drove nonstop without any response. My mind was racing. I knew I had to get out of there. My hands fumbled for the door handle, but he locked the doors. He asked me if I didn't trust him. His tone was creepy. The friendly act was gone. I told him with a serious tone to let me out. I almost shouted at him, but he didn't respond. I realized I was trapped. He started laughing, a cold, evil laugh. He asked me why I was so worried. It's just a little ride, you'll be fine. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. He said to just sit tight, we would be there soon. As we were going, I saw a small plastic spoon rolling around on the floor. It was probably a leftover from some drive-through. I picked it up and hid it in my pocket. The car halted to a clearing. He slowed the truck. There was an old cabin near the clearing. He gave me an unsettling smile. I knew I had to act fast. I instantly tried to open the door, but he grabbed my hands. He told me to calm down. I tried to escape from his grip, but his grip was tighter. I took the spoon and jabbed it into his eye. He screamed with pain. I unlocked the door and ran. I ran into the dark, hearing him opening the door and screaming at me to stop. I was pushing the branches and the bushes aside. He was running and crashing through the trees behind me. But I didn't stop. I was getting out of breath, dodging the branches that tried to snag me. Suddenly I saw a light in a house in the distance. It was a small house near a large oak tree. I sprinted towards it, hoping someone was inside. I reached the cabin, stumbled onto the porch. I pounded on the door, shouting for help. A few moments later, the lights inside turned on, and an elderly couple opened the door. They were confused when they saw me. The man had a shotgun in his hand. He pointed it toward me, asking me what I needed. I told him everything. I told him the man was coming for me. The old man dialed the police while I was constantly looking behind me. I knew he was watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But he didn't. Half an hour passed, but no one came from the shadows. Then I heard sirens. The couple told me the police were coming. A few officers came and searched the whole area, but all they found were the marks left by the car tires. I never saw Matteo again, if that was even his real name. I still think about what would have happened if the couple weren't there that night.